Earlier this week, something really interesting happened involving Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and a good friend of mine, and I have to admit, it's one of those moments that leaves you thinking, well, what should I believe here? But as always, I want to explain the story in full and give you all the details so you can make up your own mind. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. It's always such a pleasure to have you here, and I genuinely appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join me. I love sharing these stories with you and having this space where we can talk about the news, the royal family, pop culture, and all the little moments that might not make the front page, but are endlessly fascinating nonetheless. Now, before we get into the main story, I want to quickly mention something that caught my eye recently. Did you happen to see the new wax figure of Princess Diana that was unveiled in Paris at the Gavin Museum? It's already causing quite a stir online, and people are divided on whether it really captures her likeness. I have to say, when I first saw it, I couldn't help but giggle a little, not out of disrespect, of course, but it reminded me of other wax museums I've visited, like the one in Great Yarmouth, which has wax figures of all sorts of celebrities from Cliff Richard to Kylie Minogue, some of which are extremely lifelike and others that are, well, let's just say they're memorable for different reasons. This new figure of Diana is dressed in the iconic revenge dress, which makes it all the more striking and recognizable, but the debate online has been intense. Some people love it, some people hate it, and some are just completely baffled. What do you think? Do you think a wax figure can ever truly capture the essence of someone as iconic as Princess Diana, or is it just a fun, slightly surreal tribute? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below because this is exactly the kind of topic that gets people talking. Moving on to Catherine herself, she recently attended the Royal Variety performance at the Royal Albert Hall, an event that, as you know, raises a significant amount of money for charity. The event is always glamorous, high-profile, and full of excitement, but it was particularly noteworthy this year because the Princess of Wales was there, looking absolutely stunning as always. It was an incredibly cold night, with sub-zero temperatures, and yet she still managed to step out of her car looking impeccable. It really does make you think about the balance between fashion and practicality because while it's wonderful to see her looking so glamorous, you also want her to stay warm and take care of herself. Even a short red carpet moment in freezing temperatures can be harsh, and it's a reminder that no matter how polished someone looks in public, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't always see. Now, here's where the story gets particularly charming and relatable. Catherine had the chance to meet my good friend, the actress, comedian, and singer Sue Pollard. You may have seen some of this pop up in the media already, but what really stood out was the nature of their conversation. Sue is exactly as you imagine her. Full of personality, unafraid to speak her mind, and not one to hold back when asking questions. She immediately noticed Catherine's hair and commented on how blonde it had become. Catherine explained that her hair lightened naturally after spending a lot of time in the sun during a summer yacht trip in the Greek islands, which makes perfect sense. Sunlight can really change hair color over time, and it's something many of us can relate to. Personally, I've noticed my own hair changes with the seasons, sometimes getting lighter or darker depending on the weather and how much time I spend outdoors, so I can definitely vouch for that explanation. Naturally, some people speculate whether Catherine later toned her hair down for style reasons, but either way, it's a relatable, human detail about someone who is constantly in the public eye. But the part one found truly delightful was what happened next. According to Sue, Catherine can do an incredibly accurate impression of one of Sue's most famous characters, Peggy the Chalet Maid, from the classic TV show set in a 1950s holiday camp. For anyone who hasn't seen it, the show is a comedy goldmine, and Peggy is a character who is always trying to get ahead and become a yellow coat rather than just mop floors, which is what makes her so endearing and funny. Catherine apparently got a big laugh from doing her impression, and it turns out that both William and Catherine know a surprising amount about the show and its fictional setting, Maplins. Sue was genuinely impressed by their knowledge, which just goes to show that behind all the formal public appearances, the royals have interests and enjoy humor just like everyone else. They appreciate classic television, share inside jokes, and can genuinely connect with people over shared cultural references. William even chimed in during the conversation, mentioning other characters like Ted Bovis and Gladys Pugh, which showed that he too has a fondness for these classic shows. It's the kind of moment that makes you realize the royals aren't just ceremonial figures, they have a sense of humor, nostalgia, and taste that mirrors the rest of us. These shows are decades old, but they continue to be rerun on streaming platforms, alongside other beloved British classics like Dad's Army, The Good Life, and The Morecambe and Wise Show, proving that good comedy is timeless. For anyone who hasn't watched them, it's worth checking out and seeing exactly what makes Princess Catherine laugh, and it's clear from this story that she has excellent comedic taste. Sue described meeting Catherine as a genuinely beautiful experience, noting that she was completely in awe of her warmth, charm, and personality. It's a reminder that even those we see constantly in public can surprise us with their humanity, humor, and ability to connect on a personal level. Behind the scenes, away from the cameras, they are clearly people who enjoy laughter, shared stories, and genuine conversation, and moments like this reveal a side of the royal family that rarely makes headlines. It's these small, personal interactions that allow us to see them as relatable, approachable, and real, which makes the story all the more fascinating and endearing. All in all, from the wax figure of Diana sparking debate online to Catherine's sun-kissed hair, her impression of Peggy the Chalet maid, and her interaction with Sue Pollard, this is exactly the kind of story that reminds us that royalty, while often seen as distant and formal, is ultimately human. They laugh, they joke, they remember the shows they loved as children, and they find joy in connecting with others over shared humor and experiences. It's a beautiful, charming glimpse behind the curtain, showing us a side of the Princess of Wales and her family that is relatable, funny, and utterly human, and I for one find it absolutely fascinating and delightful to share with all of you. Now here's the part one found absolutely delightful. According to Sue, Catherine can do a spot-on impression of one of her most famous characters, Peggy the Chalet maid, from the classic TV show set in a 1950s holiday camp. It's funny to imagine, but apparently she even joked about wanting to be a yellow coat instead of just mopping floors, just like Peggy in the show. Both William and Catherine seem to know a surprising amount about the fictional world of Maplins and other shows from that era. Sue was genuinely stunned by their knowledge, and it's a charming reminder that behind all the formalities and public appearances, the royals are people who enjoy a good laugh and share inside jokes just like the rest of us. In fact, William even mentioned remembering characters like Ted Bovis and Gladys Pugh, showing that they've clearly watched these shows and appreciate the humor, which is a wonderful glimpse into their private lives. These shows, though decades old, continue to entertain today through reruns and streaming platforms, sitting alongside other British classics like Dad's Army and The Good Life. If you haven't seen them, I highly recommend checking them out. You'll quickly see what tickles the funny bone of the Princess of Wales, and it might just surprise you. Sue described meeting Catherine as a beautiful experience and said she was completely in awe, which just goes to show that even those who spend their lives in the spotlight can still impress and delight those around them with their warmth, humor, and genuine personality. All in all, it's these little behind-the-scenes moments that remind us the royals are human, relatable, and capable of sharing laughter over the same things many of us grew up loving.